how that will work with us when you have an excess in extreme cases.
Yep. Well, I mean, the way we've got it laid out now, with the changes that we made as a result of the last meeting, everything, the flows don't change. Our, as we've discussed a whole bunch of times, the issue the neighbors are having with the wet basements are because they're in the groundwater. Our basements are gonna be above the groundwater, so we shouldn't have water being introduced into the overland system by pipes coming out of the basement, discharging the flow from a wet basement out onto the street. So we won't be adding to that at all. And the rest of the grading, as we just spoke about, remains going to the large wetland area in the back, so.
And it's the same amount that
Right.
today is
Right.
going to.
Yep.
And I guess my last question is that I think we did already address this, but as far as the fire hydrant, the closest fire hydrant to the rear lots is where?
To be honest with you, I don't know off the top of my head. I think we mentioned at one of the previous meetings that the fire department didn't have any,
They didn't have any comment? Yeah,
any
I
comments,
looked
but
through there, right, yeah. Then I didn't see anything on the department notes, whether there was a no comment or a comment, so.
yeah, to be honest with you, I don't know where the closest hydrant is.
I recall, I think in the first meeting, Stephanie had mentioned, because I believe we're 400 feet to the furthest house, and depending on the hydrant location, if it's over 500, the fire department may require the house to be sprinkled,
Right.
Yes,
which
which
is
is always
keeping with what they've done in the past, required in the past, I should say. Everybody on the board set for right now? I'll throw it out to you. Okay. I know this young lady had her arm. If you just want to grab the microphone and.
What I would like is to have.
Yeah,
the
excuse me.
microphone
Yeah.
turned on, or people talk louder, so I won't have to check with my neighbors on the way home what was said. I cannot be able to hear a word that anybody said so far.
Okay, well, we'll do our best. The microphone's only to record. It doesn't amplify. There's no speakers in the room. It's only for TV.
All right, I'll talk with my neighbors on the way home.
We'll do our best. Is there anybody? So, all right, if you just grab a microphone, and I just ask, as I did last time, this is our 4th public hearing, so I just want to hear. I don't want to rehash what we've talked about before. So,
Good evening.
Those are all on the record.
I'm Garrett Tunison. I'm with Tunison Environmental Consultants, and I'm here on behalf of the abutters. One of the things that does concern me is I understand the driveway is going to be gravel. The soils mapped in this area are Carlton Paxton and Merrimack Fine Sandy Loam, which are both till soils. They consist of either the Carlton Paxton has a upper portion, the upper stratum is relatively rapid drainage, but the substratum is slow drainage, and vice versa with the Merrimack Fine Sandy Loams. Since these are glacial till soils, if you drive a lot of vehicles over this type of soil, and I've seen this on a lot of my sites, I have probably 15, 20 years of observing this throughout Massachusetts, when they become compacted, they don't drain. So this is going to likely be an issue. So I've had a lot of my sites where they've converted to wetland on top of these soil types, especially out in Upton, Hopkinton, Northbridge. So especially out in those areas, I've seen this happen quite a bit with these soil types. So this is something that I think it would be nice to see some type of drainage system associated with that, so that when it becomes compacted, it doesn't just flow down into the street and also into the wetlands without recharging. And that's something that you won't find in HydroCAD or PondPack or any of the CAD stormwater where you would run your stormwater drainage calculations. So that's something that is not in these systems. So that's one of the concerns. And the other, I'm coming into this a bit late. Do the homes have, as far as the roof
That will be
runoff,
handled by
is it-
Concom.
Okay,
When and
that's
if
not
we
gonna-
pass it on.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay, thank you. So those are my concerns, because I know that this area over here is in a Zone A, so I do know that that area would, we don't want it to run off the driveway and go this way and go that way and end up into the Zone A and flood the neighbors more. So it would be nice if there was some type of drainage system associated with the driveway. Thank you.
Okay. Stephanie, did you want to address any of that?
We had talked about at a previous meeting, Garrett,
Okay.
the fact that this gravel driveway is not being constructed for infiltration and will become impacted,
Yes.
which is why, one of the reasons in a previous meeting, we asked to see more grading and spot grades along that driveway to demonstrate that there was going to be positive flow to the street
Okay.
and to the wetland system, as Mr. Faria pointed out. So that was a good point.
I think if they could, it would be great to see some type of additional drainage, even if it's just dry wells or something. But I know the groundwater table's kind of high.
Well, I was
and
going to,
you know,
right,
that's-
that would have been my
there are
second
other
comment.
issues,
That,
but
yeah.
yes. So those are concerns.
Is there anybody else in the audience?
Andrew Thomas, 4 Pheasant Lane. I'm sorry, you mentioned something about introducing groundwater through sump pumps, I believe. Are these houses designed to have any sump pumps? Because, I mean, I know you're saying they're above the water table, but if they're constructed with sump pumps, where's that water go?
Right now, we don't have sump pump shown, again, that's, you know, something that they'll decide during construction, but we've got the house is gonna be 3 or 4 feet above groundwater, so at this point, I don't think that they would have a sump pump.
All right, my concern is if they do have a sump pump, where does that water go? Is it going down the driveway to Pheasant Lane?
No, if it was.
Is it going to the wetlands, which is
Where
gonna
is it?
flow?
Well,
Western?
Mr. Chair, if I may, and I know you understand building construction. My understanding is that modern technology, if you construct the foundation correctly, you won't have water coming into the basement requiring the water be discharged.
Correct. I work in the construction field. I know what goes on, what happens. What if something doesn't happen and it's not constructed correctly and some pumps need to be added?
Okay, well, I'll take this one. So keep in mind, and we've spoken about this before, and I live in a house a half mile from here, very similar condition to many of these people's houses. The house is built at or below the water table. It was before the regulations were in place. So and as a home builder and as a designer, I always tell people, I can guarantee you a dry basement with a sump pump, because you can't control the water table, you can't control what happens, you know, environments outside of you. But these houses, if you look at these, top of foundation is 4 feet above the existing grade, and 4.5 feet in one case. That is, best I could tell from doing a little survey drive-by, about 3.5 feet taller than the existing houses. So the circumstances or the water episodes are certainly going to be less here. Still, if I was building a house, you fill that hole with crushed stone, and you certainly put pipes in there, because you may have a radon issue up the road, or you may have a water issue. So let's say a homeowner has to put a pipe out there. Again, looking at the grading that we've required on this plan, they're going, you know, they can't put worst case scenario, they put a sump pump pipe off their property. Well, neighbor calls the police or the town and that gets fixed, because you can't do that. But if they put it out, you know, in their backyard or in their side yard, it's gonna follow the grading that's shown on the plan. And you should know, part of the special permit process on this, and in part in response to the conversations with the neighbors, if and when this project is approved by this board, the decision will include some conditions. And one of them, for example, will be grading as-built of the driveway and of the yards. So just because it is critical, this is a pretty flat area, and yeah, it's a pretty wet area up to the northwest, as explained earlier. When you look at the bottom of you're at the bottom of the basin. So it's imperative that this plan be built the way it's shown. So to your point, that ties into the top of the foundation being called, you know, here it's called out as 104 and it's 105, where the existing grade's 100. So, so there are I don't want to say fail-safes, but there are checkpoints in place. These are designed, and this isn't an option. They have to build this house with the bottom of the foundation where it's spec'd out, and the top of the foundation where it's spec'd out. They can't deviate from that. So, that's me.
Who checks that the
Well,
foundation?
so what happens in the town of Easton, to get a building permit, you file first for a foundation permit. Building inspector gets it, looks, see that the site plan meets everything that was approved, maybe it gets kicked down to Stephanie's office, she takes a look at it. Then they get a permit to put a foundation in. The foundation is put in, then they have to go and do an as-built. So the engineer comes out and they have to show the height of that foundation and the location. So first to make sure it's above the water table to the degree that was specified, and to make sure it's in the right place. That's not it doesn't violate a zoning setback. Then after that, the septic system will be built. And I'm assuming here there will be, excuse me, there will be some sort of infiltration system for the gutters and downspouts required by Concom when they go through that. And so those will all have, they'll have design specifications, design heights, basically, elevations. And there'll be as-built required for those also. So it gets checked at each point.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you explaining that.
Sure.
So that
We try our
everyone in the
best.
audience knows what is expected.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and I can't, and I just want to, I don't know, we only have 4 members here tonight. At some point, I may ask if they want us to close the public hearing, which means we wouldn't take any further information. Could ask if they want us to vote. Thing is, we have 5 members, but Amos is not eligible to vote on this one. So this being a special permit, we would have to have 4 out of 4. So at some point, we'll ask, okay, do you want to do this, or do you want to hold off? But if and when this board does vote, and I don't know, we don't talk to each other outside this room. Although he's my neighbor, so I say hi now and then. But we understand, we hear everything that you guys are, and we take it. We take it to heart, and we understand it, and we hear it often, and some of us live it. It's the soils that we have. Easton's known for a lot of things. It's not known for good soils. But our bylaws through the last few decades have been formed in a public process and approved by all of us, the citizens, at town meeting, usually pretty overwhelmingly. But they've been crafted around some of the issues. So that's why in here it talks about the existing grading. That's why you hear us talking a lot about grading. And I understand when you live in a wet area and trees are going to come down, you think that's going to cause more water. And what if this guy doesn't do what he's supposed to do? But we require everything that we can via our, through our bylaws. We can't really go beyond them. And I think between the diligence that this board gives it and Stephanie and her staff, we try to do the best job that we can for all the citizens of Easton. So anyways, I didn't mean to wax poetic, and I hope it was loud enough. I'm not often told I'm not loud enough. So. Anyways, is there anybody else in the audience who wants to check in? Okay. Anybody else on the board have any?
Yeah, I mean, I just say that I think it was either the last couple meetings, I think it was actually 2 meetings ago, when I had asked if they would consider any type of, like a gravel drain or, some sort of trench drain that maybe to help alleviate some concerns. And there was really, I guess you really wasn't something that you were interested in looking at, or do you think it's pointless, I suppose?
Drain of what? If I could, I don't understand.
Maybe like, say
There's
say,
not
like
separation.
water running off the properties to the neighboring properties.
But, and I'm not advocating for the project, but I'm just, as I look at this as a board member, I say, okay, where's the water going? So you can see in the driveway, it kind of, the straight section crowns, then there's a little bit that goes towards the street, and then the rest heads northwest. And then the proposed residence 1 and 2 basically drain east to west.
The only reason we haven't proposed anything is, with the groundwater being high as it is, there isn't much we can do.
So you think that's pointless in this situation?
Yeah,
There's nothing you can
put
do.
something extremely shallow, but we're talking a foot.
Right.
And it's,
Well, yeah, I mean, you're building leaching areas, right, where the septic is gonna
right,
purportedly could go and be filtered and, oh, the microphone.
but that work, oh,
Yeah.
so, yep, thank you.
So,
I mean, the septic system we're actually raising up, so, but the issue with the driveway being at existing grade and the groundwater being at 3 feet or below it, there isn't all that much room to get anything that would be significant enough to make any kind of a difference during the wet season. During the summer, it would, it would leach through. We had pretty good soils on the perk test we did, so you would get some leaching on that, but again, the time of year that you...
So you're saying, let's see, on lot C at the 104 contour, that's actually, that's higher than the finished grade of your septic system,
Right.
yet that, a drain there would be less effective than the leaching area itself will be.
No, not there, but I mean,
Oh, okay.
I guess, I'm not sure what a drainage system would help.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, no,
I heard it mentioned.
Right, I don't think, that the only place a drainage system could possibly help would be along the driveway. But again, we're matching the existing flow, so there's no increase either towards Pheasant Lane or towards the wetland. But in that area there on Lot C, it's,
Yeah. So you're saying,
drainage system
yeah, so
just-
you're saying that some sort of like a, whatever, like 50-foot drain or 30 would be ineffective to, say,
To alleviate-
mitigate any water going towards existing dwelling number 20.
right, certainly, well, yes, certainly, because the water doesn't flow towards number 20 now, nor will it afterwards. So, yeah, a system there isn't going to help number 20 at all. None of our site doesn't shed towards number 20 in either
So
pre or
it's-
post.
Sorry. Okay, so going from the 104 number right there under your test
Yep.
pit information,
Yep.
that's going to go.
Well, I
It's
mean,
going to go that way.
right,
It's going to
towards,
go obviously around the leaching area, right?
Right.
And then it's going to miss the back corner of that yard and just kind of shoot right over to lot A, I suppose.
right, heading that direction towards Lot A, correct.
Right. Okay. So that would not help alleviate like the water situation that's been mentioned in this area. That it would just be pointless. Really, there's nothing you can do here.
I mean, it's got to be 50 feet away from the leaching area, to introduce another drainage system. So once you put the 50 feet in, yeah, it wouldn't make a significant difference, I don't
Okay.
think.
Yes.
That's it? Thomas, do you have anything else?
Just a question. You have flow going to the left there.
Mhm.
What happens if there is not enough capacity to absorb? What happens if there is not enough capacity to absorb the overflow there? All the water will go to the street, right?
Well, right now, there's a high point in the driveway, so that section is draining back towards the street, and the rest of it is draining, heading in a north direction towards the wetland.
And that grade and the capacity of that wetland is enough to absorb even on extreme conditions, so the water doesn't go to the street.
Well, that's what it's absorbing now, yes.
Okay.
Yep, so it's matching what's happening right now.
Maybe I know about it.
Good. Gentleman over here? Anybody?
I just want to say, I think the proposed that Greg made with the creating a trench kind of through the rock wall area would definitely help get some of that water on the northeast corner of Lot A towards the overall.
I agree.
Yeah, but just for clarity, and I think you understand, but just for the record, it's not a trench, it's just, I'm
it's
just
the
creating an
grade.
island, so it's leaving the existing grade so it'll flow through, right? Okay.
Yeah, trench maybe wasn't the best word.
Yeah, I just wanted to, for the record, have that. All right, so I think, last call, anyone? All right, so,
Just one quick thing. I am Marshall Dost. I live at 20 Pheasant Lane. And just so you know, the water does flow east to west, but it also flows north to south because it comes down between my property and 16 Pheasant Lane, spills onto Pheasant Lane, and runs all the way down Pheasant Lane to the culvert that's supposedly built down there to handle it unless there's too much water. So yes, water does come from the property out back and goes right down between our properties. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Walter Dews, 8 Pheasant Lane. Water from the wetland, it comes along the wall, this wall here, and it continues, and it goes into the next property. What's your number? 12. It goes onto 12 into the backyard. Then it comes onto my property, number 8. It flows down into the street. I don't know what the map is, but it flows into the street. So the water from here comes down. No, I can't show it on this map.
I understand what you're saying.
But it flows down into the street.
Sure.
I have a sewer in front of my house. It goes into the sewer. Then I have another stream behind my house that comes through the wall, and that stream goes onto their property, number 4 Pheasant Lane. It flows in the back of their property into some culvert. So the water that's coming from this property isn't just going into the wetland. That water's coming onto 3 properties. It's going to flow onto 3 properties.
Well, the water coming on
and
all
onto
those
the
properties you
street.
talked about is the result of about 80 acres. It's not just because of these 2 acres. I think we need to be clear about
All right,
that.
but this is
I
where the water's
understand
coming.
your neighborhood, like most neighborhoods in Easton, right, is very
All
wet
right.
because of the clay.
But the
I
water's
understand.
flowing. It flows as streams, little streams.
Absolutely.
It's
As
not-
we saw last week, you're
All right.
at the pinch point of that stream.
And I
coming
showed
down
you the
Bay Road.
pictures. So it's not even just the septic, the system under the ground. It's we actually have water flowing over our property.
Yeah.
And that's going to increase because that water's
How's
going
that
to
gonna
come onto our
increase?
property.
How's that going to increase?
Because they say it's going to go to a wetland. The wetland water is coming along the
But it's
wall.
already, but sir, they're not adding land. That land exists. And I want you to understand, I'm not taking your concerns lightly. I am, but
Understand?
the water, when it rains now or when snow melts and X thousands of gallons are produced, they're already being produced. They're going, and they're kind of flowing, as you just said, they're going this way and they're right. Maybe they're even coming this way. There's some curls in the topo. So putting 2 houses in, slightly increasing, adding impervious area, but you're not creating more water. So it's our job to make sure the water is directed in a way that it continues existing drainage patterns. What I see on these plans tells me that's being done.
Okay.
Not for a minute. No one's going to eliminate your water situation
eliminate
is
it,
not
but-
going to get better because of these houses. It's our job to make sure it doesn't get worse. Now,
That's what we're here for.
Additional water is not going to be created. It's really a matter of making sure that the momentum, making sure the velocity of that water equals what it is now. Or sometimes you can improve it, but you really can't improve it in this situation because it's where you're talking about these 2 little lots here, but it's this 80 or 2, it's this giant piece up here. That's where all that water's coming down parallel to Bay Road.
Well, some of it goes in, some of it's going that way towards Bay Road. But the other water where these parcels is that water's coming along the wall.
Sure.
This part, it comes along the wall and it goes out into the street and it goes onto all our 3 properties. So we're talking about all the other water and the rest of the lot.
Well, but you
Talking
can't
about the water
you
adjacent
can't
to
break
the
the water
wall.
up like that. That water that comes across your driveway and their driveway and their driveway, it's not just from those 2 lots.
I
None of it
understand.
may even be from that.
Yeah.
It's from a giant area. It's gravity. It's gravity and it's soil conditions, and the imperviousness of the soil. Anyways, I understand what you're saying, but it's not. Again, our job is to make sure that the condition is not made worse. Okay, so would you like us to close the public hearing?
I would like it to be closed, please, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Anybody would like to do that?
I'll make a motion to.
Yeah, you can on this one, sorry. Is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of closing the public hearing? Motion passes. Okay, so from this point on, we will take no more information and we will take no more public input. I do want to say, I want to reiterate there are only 4 of us that are eligible tonight to vote on this with Deb's absence. And as I understand it, Deb is going to be missing our next meeting also. And so a vote would have to be unanimous to approve, being in need of supermajority where it's a special permit. So I just want to make that clear. Would you like me to entertain a motion, or would you like us to continue? Not to put it all on you, but just we're kind of short with, unfortunately, Amos is a new member, so it's an unusual condition, but it is what it is. The rules are the rules, so.
I think I'm better off, Mr. Chairman, for my, waiting till there's 5 members to vote.
Okay, sure.
Give my client the best opportunity to go forward.
All right. So you will revise that plan and just get it to Stephanie. And then why don't you, as I understand, because our next meeting is the 15th, right?
It's the 9th, the 9th of September.
So we'll go back. I know Deb said, I know she's missing tonight and the next meeting.
Right,
I thought she said, oh no, her
Which would be
syllabus is
the
the
9th.
15th. So
right,
just
right.
communicate with Stephanie.
Yes, Stephanie.
So we don't waste
Yep.
any of your time.
Well, why don't we say for now, because if you don't continue it to a date certain tonight, then
All right, so
we have to rehear.
let's go 2
So
meetings
go
out.
2
'Cause
meetings
her note
out.
said she was going to miss.
Right, and then if if she's not going to be at the meeting on the 9th, then you can continue. And that allows the board to continue it at the next meeting and
Okay.
keep the abutters informed of when the decision, when the board is going to be
Okay.
discussing it.
So it'll be September 9th. We'll continue too.
Yeah, but just check in, because I'm highly
Yes.
confident
Yes.
we'll only have 4 that night as well, so.
Yes.
So, motion to continue to September 9th.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. So to folks in the
And
audience,
just-
again, we appreciate your input, and just, if you're hurt, I doubt it's going to happen on the 9th, so just
Just you
Call-
can check
call
in
the
with
planning
us and
office,
we'll let you know.
just to save you
So
the
you don't have to
hassle
come
of
in
coming out.
case they're not going to.
All right, so next up is 15 Roosevelt Circle.
They'll have to do the adjournments.
I see a representative in the room.
Yeah.
Public meeting. Oh, so this is, do you have something to read?
Question. No.
Public hearing? Public hearing, so nothing to read?
No, because it was a minor, the board
Okay,
determined it was a
that's
minor
okay.
modification.
Questions?
Did you have a question?
Oh, no.
I know. Yep. How you doing? Good.
Notice the plans get smaller and smaller every time, so we can't really read them. If you zoom in, it says, "We hope it looks like this." This looks like brick, but it's
Like we're writing.
it's faux painting.
Is it what's
see, folks.
online? If it's what's online, I have it. Yeah, I have it.
Yeah,
Suzanne would-
site plans, right? No.
Yeah, but I think they're,
Let's see.
No,
those are
Yeah.
from,
yeah, those are not,
Previously approved,
yeah,
right?
there's-
I'm gonna say, you and your
oh, no,
boss
still I-11.
certainly hold the record for least
Yeah. yeah,
electronic filings.
Sam is really good at
Many a trees
electronic
have fallen.
filing.
Many trees have fallen by
My
there.
goodness.
We get
But we're not burning coal,
everything
all right?
electronic.
All right. All right, so go ahead. I'll let you identify yourself for the record, please.
I am Sam Schofield. I work with Doug King Builders. I'm here with a proposal for minor modification on 15 Roosevelt Circle, part of the Queesa Commons 40R overlay district. We're proposing taking Building B that used to be one building that was 48 units with 22,000 square feet of commercial, and essentially dividing it into 2 buildings, creating a green space between what we're now calling the east and west wing. So right now, we're proposing to start off with building the west wing of the building, what is in the handout that I gave you and have uploaded to the online permit eye. This building will have 24 units of apartments with roughly 9,000 square feet of commercial retail on the first floor. And then, like I said, we're getting this green space between, it's probably roughly at the tightest point, I think it's about 40 feet between the two buildings. The underground parking lot, the underground parking is essentially the same footprint. It'll run underneath this green space. You'll see the ramp coming in from about the center of the site plan. It'll go underneath, and there'll be an area in the future to connect the other building to it. There'll be a knockout wall. So then we can extend the east wing building and connect it to it.
So so you're only building the foundation and the garage for the west,
Correct.
the west wing,
In the connector, the middle connector, if you want to call it that.
which is under the sort of the patio area.
It's out of this, yes, this green space that's created patio area.
Gotcha. Is it the same? So the same way in and out, I guess.
Correct. Yeah, there won't be an additional one made for the future. We'll use an existing.
I left my James Bond spyglass at home.
Why?
I couldn't tell if those are topo lines or something else.
It was before it was connected.
Yeah, yeah, it was one
So
building.
before that, the two buildings were connected
They were connected in the middle,
on,
correct.
on
sir.
that shape.
In that same shape, yes, essentially the same shape.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
We went through the parking calculations and, we balanced it back out, make sure we had adequate for this building. It was in my application, make sure we had adequate for that. We reduced our impervious area by about just a little under a quarter acre, I think it was 0.2. We essentially were taking out that middle part of the building and also at the, if you know on the site plan, on the westerly end of the building, there used to be kind of an oval moon-shaped turnaround, but where the road went around, we removed that, now that has grass area. Actually, the last page of my handout shows the red line change that happens between the two plans.
Wondering.
And the site engineer has noted what you, next to impossible to read on my 8.5 by 11s here, but noted the different changes that happened. You should be able to read on your iPads. You can see that turnaround out to the west side there.
So there's a substantial reduction in footprint.
Yes, yes.
So
Above
are
ground.
the units smaller? Because eventually you're talking the same
Well,
number of apartments.
We're same number of apartments, but we used the 4-story, where initially we were kind of thinking just keeping it all
Oh, okay,
3-story.
gotcha.
So we went, it's kind of a 3, and then it goes up to a 4 if you look at the elevations. The core is a little taller, we're allowed inside the 40R. I think the original concept back in 2008 showed it as a 4-story building. And then subsequent plans, we had brought it down to a 3, and now we're kind of doing a mix of the two.
So,
You want me to just highlight some of my comments?
yeah, let me just one question before I forget. Let me just find out what it's called on, but, so the commercial space, which faces west, I think, is gonna open outside.
Yes, for the proposed restaurant, that's
Right.
correct.
And I know there was discussion, where are we at with exterior entertainment? Are we allowed, didn't have are we allowed to do that? Is that something we have to address later? Was that addressed in the master plan?
Yeah, so I brought that up, and I think under the original rules, it was not allowed as under the table of uses for the Queesack Commercial District. Like the QS, no, it's not Queesack Commercial, the table of uses for the QS, for the Smart B area. The Queesack Smart Growth Overlay District had its own table of uses.
For this district?
Yes, for this
Yes.
district.
Now we get too
We
many
have a lot of
Queesacs.
Queesack districts.
So it had its own table of uses. Christine.
Okay, so that, I mean, that doesn't really affect anything we're doing now, but
No,
just
right, yeah.
up the road.
We'd have to change
So
that
we have to
town
go through a
meeting
process.
without-
Yeah, I think, is it right now a special, a variance? Because what does Stone Forge work under?
Yeah, I don't know. Can I, Suzanne, so go ahead, Stephanie, why don't you do what
Stone
you're doing?
Forge has,
Can I borrow your bylaw?
I think they have a variance.
Yeah, I think they have a variance also.
Okay, so on the building design, I just have that the elevations do not depict roof-mounted structures such as air conditioning units or vent pipes, so I don't know if you're planning
You
to
wouldn't,
have those.
no, we do the same with what we did with our building D&E from the board's comments on 11 Roosevelt Circle, that they'll be in a parapet, so you will not be able to see them.
Okay. That might be noted on the plans, just so people know that. Then in the parking and circulation, clear directional markings and signage should be shown. I think the traffic flow arrows that you had were more informational for the plan than what you're actually going to mark in the roadway. And because portions are one way, I think that needs to be clearly marked in the road, and there needs to be signage. Landscaping, you should probably submit revised plans, based on the proposed changes. The landscaping was approved previously for the building, and it looks like there'll be some changes as a result of the differences in disturbance. Then you should also show the location of bicycle racks and benches, which were shown on the plan that was previously approved. And when Building B was originally approved in the planning director's note at that time, it talked about dumpsters and screening, and that King had indicated the plans on coordinating with Allied Waste Services to use an existing dumpster pad at Queesit on the Pond and coordinate for daily pickup, and that was going to be reviewed and confirmed that that met with the health department's approval. So I don't know if that was ever resolved. I mean, was that discussed and was that approval? I didn't find anything readily in the record that indicated that.
Do we have it separate?
I'll have to look into that
No
one.
big deal.
I know that we had discussions with Easton Board of Health at that time, but
Yeah.
we can open up
But
a new
if you could
dialogue.
just, if you could just get back and confirm that they okayed that.
It's a
Okay.
separate.
Because that looked like that was, may not have been a condition, but it was certainly an expectation.
So I know our sharing of the pad at 7 Roosevelt has gone well so far in the trash end.
Yeah, so. Nope,
No.
that was it.
Board members, questions, comments?
What we're gonna do is, let me see.
So this is the one that, when we previously had discussed this issue with Mr. King, we kind of thought that this was a quote-unquote minor modification.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think if you look at, is it the last page, the next last page, that has the red lines?
Yeah.
That sort of demonstrates how, you know, the
Pre and post
the
conditions.
site works the same way, if you will. You know, and that's really the biggest change is just doing this building in two halves, but.
Is this application intended to be the final site plan application for, for building, for the unbuilt area, the east side?
I would say not. I think it would come back for
Now,
something
this is
minor on that
strictly
end.
for phase one,
west.
Okay, right.
whatever
The
we're
west
calling it.
wing, the west building.
Actually, 1A,
west
I
side.
think it is.
So building B, the east side, the future side is a placeholder as far as to like.
Of the building
provide
footprint
scale.
and coming with the final design
Right, yeah.
and some of that little, but the stormwater, all that, we did, I don't think it would change from that point. If anything, it was very,
yeah.
very, very minor. There was already just a minor change done to the stormwater as part of this building. A rain garden was removed and the underground recharge area was enlarged to compensate that, and I think some, not tree wells, but,
And yes, tree infiltration.
tree infiltration, that's what the wells
So
were
they-
added to help with the clarification of the water.
So with the road and parking areas around the entire west and east, will that will all be, I know it's part of it's already complete, and then other parts will be complete after the completion of the west side?
The infrastructure for the road I would say would stay in position. We're not looking to tear it out to put in for the east side of the building. With shoring and everything else, we would try to dig in that forward, that front, the eastern building.
How much that is a placeholder now? How much it will conform to what we are seeing now, or might change significantly?
I think with our new, for our layouts that we've done and our preliminary looked at with the architect, that we're pretty confident that's what we came up with for the placeholder. As you see, we didn't, even from our old footprint, it's pretty close to where we were. You know, with the building floor, a little bit of that northern wing there came off in the center part that we're proposing as green space at this time. We haven't very too far off it to begin with.
Right, so say the park is not going to be constructed at this point?
I think it will, that area would be constructed. Obviously, some of that would have impact on the new construction side
Okay.
of the east side. I mean.
Yeah, maybe we just need some sort of a, different colored, whatever, a bold line kind of showing what is actually being shown to be built now and decided upon and what is not, I guess. It just makes, so when there are new board members in whatever years, it makes sense to them as to what was approved and what was a placeholder, I guess.
And when is the second building going to be?
Once we're finished with construction and we have occupancy, I think we'd be going, and we're successful here, we'd move on to the next half of this, as we've done every building as we've gone through the project.
Where'd you see Park?
Park, oh, that is to the north of the future east building.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, not parking, park,
No.
an actual
Right.
park.
So, I was gonna say, so building B, west, the west wing gets built. And so I'm looking at the landscaping plan, 4.0, and I see, what it shows. It obviously doesn't show anything in the area of building B, east. What's gonna happen in that area? Is it just gonna be grassed over?
Well, right now it is a grassed area.
Those little hibachi?
Well, the so existing today in that spot right now, we have a flagpole there, some hibachi, some picnic tables.
Oh, those are there? They're
That
still
is
there?
right in,
Okay.
the flagpole is pretty much right where that building B is. That is that area, because that intersection that's gonna be constructed.
Yeah, you're right. I was
That's the
thinking it was
hill
further
going
back.
down
So-
next to the wastewater treatment
So
plant.
that is a recreation area and it will stay as so?
Not in the future, when the building comes, that recreational area, we built it as a temporary, to put a little green space there.
We asked them to clean it up
Clean it up.
instead of,
Okay.
it was kind
So we
of
put
a-
the pine trees, the fence, and we built that park area there for temporary holders to make it cleaner there, as you pulled in from Stone Forge to go down our access road.
Okay.
Because that intersection that's hatched down here in this corner, that is that dirt road that goes out to 138, presently as we use as a haul road. So you can kind of get reference of where all that would be. You can see that's right where our white fence is right now.
Probably need to maintain.
So, Mr. Chair, you asked about
Yeah.
live entertainment. So restaurant, dining facility, or other establishment providing food and beverage with no live or mechanical entertainment as an accessory use is allowed in the B and C zone. A restaurant would not be allowed in the A zone. So is this,
This is subsection B.
so a restaurant would be allowed, but they would probably, there was a question about this, the allowed
That's what I was
uses,
getting
and
at. That's
think
what I was
they
saying,
could-
right, yeah.
I think they could seek a variance, because there was another use that was being proposed, but we'd have to look into that if a variance would be allowed for a use.
Yeah, or maybe make a change at town meeting even.
Yes,
That'd be
yes,
better way
yep.
to
How
do it,
trends have
yeah.
been, it
Yes.
makes more sense.
Yep.
Okay,
I mean, with that in mind, I don't know if there's anything, assuming that there'll be, chance, might be semi-frequent that there is live music there, I just don't, there's no real way to keep the sound down going across the pond, or are there ways that, are there things we could think about in that respect, given that now we know there's going to be a possibly, somewhat, noise
yeah,
producing.
well, I think, I mean, there's certainly ways to screen it,
Right,
and
yeah.
but I think we need to have the applicant here and what they're I mean, you'd be pretty loud to hop across the pond too. I mean, we don't know what they're
Yeah, no,
proposing.
that's true,
But, they can, and there are already built in, their standards for sound.
Yeah.
But, whether there's screening, landscaping, there's easy ways to keep it, to work with the acoustics, if that becomes an issue.
Especially when we have that, when you go across the other side, and we have that walkway going by.
Right.
And we have some buffer there that's up higher that we can put plantings and do, that's farther away from the building too, so it's not just up tight.
I was wondering if that would be part of this site plan, or if that would just be sort of an add-on that
Well,
is
'cause
figured
no,
out later.
not really, because it's not proposed, there's no outside dining proposed on this
Yeah,
plan,
that's-
so.
okay.
And given its current structure,
Yeah.
we don't, it's a variance through ZBA, so.
The plan is for it to
We
be a
wouldn't
restaurant,
handle
but it might not end up.
Yeah,
being
I'm
that.
throwing it out there
Yeah.
tonight so that it could be, so that we all know and we can decide how best to
Contemplate.
handle
Yeah.
it.
A restaurant is allowed under the bylaw, right,
Right.
therefore, right, yeah.
So, sounds like I'm happy with the building. And I don't know, and we've seen this a couple times now. For folks at home, it's not like we're just yesing this stuff. But it sounds like we need to tweak a couple things on the site plan, right, to Stephanie's points.
I think we need to see what's done, what's proposed for this phase, and what is not gonna be done at this point.
You mean in terms of like site work?
Yeah,
Right, like a delineation
Right,
line
yeah.
of where, where they're gonna stop the
Yes.
parking lot
Yeah.
being done.
so we can see
et cetera.
we see what's already, what has already been installed, what's gonna be added, and then what's
So can you,
to be, what's
you
not
understand what
even
he's
being
looking for?
approved as part of this application.
Yeah, I think I think I'll make a separate plan, because I think if we have this one that's showing the red line of the change,
Right.
and then showing more what you're talking about, the phasing of it.
A limit of work.
Because
Basically,
too
a
much,
limit
you'll be
of-
looking at
right.
all types of layers.
we're talking about a limit of work for the
Yes.
west wing phase.
West wing, yeah.
I mean, if we sign this right now, who's to say in 10 years, it wouldn't just look like that was the approved plan without even any,
Here we are
indication.
11 years later, and I'm still trying to do it.
Okay.
2008, we approved this. Man. All right, so are we all, everybody good? Can we continue this one
Motion
out?
to continue to,
Next meeting?
shall we make it the next meeting?
You good with that in 2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
September 9th.
September 9th.
Did I hear a second?
Yes.
All right, all those in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good night.
Sawmill Village. I think I saw Rick Lincoln here before.
Yep.
Greetings. Come on.
The variance is if they dine outside.
Yeah, it's totally separate from that, actually. It's a side discussion, but.
Excuse me.
But that because it's commercial too.
Greg, everyone got going here, just took, some slow start.
The room was dead for a while, wasn't it? End of summer, everybody's melancholy. Or had too many margaritas or something, you know?
I was in East Tim, after that wind, I don't think, maybe I just, yeah, it's like a wind tunnel, oh, yeah. You know when like the wind blows and it's just like,
Yeah.
it's not even like a gust, it's just a nonstop, just like, yeah, right,
Well,
yeah.
it's funny, Saturday I worked in the yard all day, right? It wasn't windy at all. Then we went to an outdoor party at my sister-in-law who lives on Berkeley is that the Taunton River or the big river down there? It's kinda-
Yeah, I think it's on.
And the wind was howling from the north. Down. I'm like, where was this?
I know, right, yeah.
But it must be something as the heat. I wonder as the land heats up, does it just is it a convection thing that goes
Oh,
up?
no, I think that was like that, the reverse, it was coming from the ocean, it was coming to the northeast.
Oh no, it was coming. That was
Oh,
coming down.
yeah.
Yeah, or,
Oh, right,
or
yeah.
it might have been coming. It might have been coming east.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, but it seemed pretty north.
Yeah,
Right?
right, yeah.
That seems. When Massachusetts does this, that seems pretty north.
Believe me, I know which way I was coming from, I was
Delicate.
I was in it, yeah.
All right.
Did switch over like the course of the day, yeah.
You will identify yourself for the record and.
Rick Lincoln with Conoco Building.
Welcome.
There it is. Thank you. Let me pass these out. I have some 11 by 17s for everybody.
Thanks. Thank you.
So, to refresh a little bit, so the last visit here, we had single family on both sides. And I refer to the right side over here as the foundry, and then the other side is the west side. So, the last concept also had a road connecting the two different segments, and we've abandoned that idea to try and minimize the impact. So right now, between the two is we just have a little walking path. After several iterations and locking down the wetlands line and identifying a vernal pool, actually two of them, we resulted in, it's a bit of a snake. But the reason for that is to try and minimize impact to resource areas. So I didn't highlight any of the resource areas for this meeting. You know, it's just kind of conceptual. So the number of units has stayed the same. We've also changed all of the floor plans to 2 bedrooms. Some have 2 bedrooms and like a study, but they are 2 bedrooms. All of them are 1,800 square feet. All of them have the lot configurations per the bylaw and, you know, meet the sideline setbacks and so forth. So we've had some discussion internally about maybe joining the 2 properties and eliminating the access up there, but that gets tricky legally. So we've stuck with this concept. We're still doing the clubhouse over, the right side hasn't been touched. Although this site plan is mostly garage rears over here on the right, and I think we're gonna change some of that. It creates fill problems, and it's tough on some of our perimeter lots, so we're gonna try and come up with a few garage fronts too, but try and minimize that to keep the architects happy. We have done some initial perks in proposed detention pond locations. We don't have grading plans yet, although we do have grading plans over here on the right. So the right side, which is where Norton is now, you know, with a staging area for the sewer project, that's all gonna get lifted about 5 feet. But from the road, it's gonna stay level. Because right now, from Foundry Street to the bottom left of that site actually drops 5 or 6 feet. So we're just gonna level it out. But it helps actually increase the distance to groundwater. There's a lot of good reasons for doing that other than just aesthetics. So it's all sewered. You know, the sewer inverts work out. But the biggest, the reason for tonight really is this left side over here with the duplexes, because that's new.
Okay. That
About sums it up.
all right?
I don't have floor plans for the duplexes, but they're supposedly coming.
So, start with the board. Anybody over here? Any questions, comments?
Well, I suppose I'd you know, have to see what the duplexes would look like in a little more detail. But under some other just typical duplex approval, I preferred a more traditional duplex look like this rather than trying to turn 2 houses connected into a duplex. So I think that's what I suggested in the, you know, with a duplex being more of an affordable, you know, option for people than to be just 2 houses adjoined by a 5-foot, you know, we've seen a few of those, which I thought might have been getting a little bit.
Yeah, I don't like them either.
A little too pervasive, but yeah, right, yeah.
Right, but we have, because it's 1,800 square feet, I think Greg would understand this too. So, had a long conversation with the architect this afternoon. So some of them will have 2 bedrooms with a study, all master suites on the first floor. And we may eliminate, you know, drop down to like 1,500 square feet on some of them to pull the front back and just really vary the elevations a whole lot. So we're gonna try and do a nice job with them. The advantage here with this site design is we have, normally I'm pinched on the sides and the depth. Here we have a little more room, you know, from front to back, which is what we're trying to keep them narrow, and so I think that'll work to our advantage.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll stick on the duplexes. Would they have like, you know, say decks in the back or patios?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. Well, they might have both depending on the contours.
Yes.
You know, I tend to like the patios, you know, step down to a patio.
Yeah, that is nice.
A lot of people
right,
like
yeah.
the decks. Some of the perimeter lots, you know, down low might be up in the air, so those will be decks.
Yes. And,
Maybe even walkouts.
yeah. And so you mentioned the, you know, I think you mentioned on we'll call it the eastern side, that was 5 feet from Foundry Street, you know, to the back, the back would be lifted up 5 feet.
Correct.
Property. What about the western, the duplex side? Is that about 5? Or
I
so?
don't, you know, we haven't done the grading on there yet, and a
Okay.
lot of that kind of gets dictated by your detention ponds and
Yes.
your stormwater and everything. I mean, we're getting the sense that it's not gonna change a whole lot. It'll follow the existing grades. If anything, it may get lifted a little bit, but if it did, I'd say like maybe 1 or 2 feet, not 5 or 6 feet.
And is it your intent at this point that you would build the entire project, both sides in one?
We'd probably do the right side first, for a variety of reasons. I mean, it's close to the sewer there. There is an existing septic system that I could potentially use if the sewer got delayed.
Oh, I remember, yeah. Mhm.
But I think the timing now is gonna work out, because they seem to be moving along pretty quick with the sewer, so.
Must have taken your property over.
Yeah, I know. Well, they're supposed to be leaving 5 feet of fill maybe over there, but we'll see how that goes.
And you're gonna have a turning lane to the eastern project side, coming from the west? Is that what you mentioned at the last meeting?
I didn't bring that detail, so we've actually hired the traffic engineer, and, you know, because that's the town's deal, but we had an opportunity to at least design, well, part of this project is also granting some land to the town up front, you know, enough to accommodate a light, a turn lane, probably a sidewalk. So it was 10 feet, now we're thinking it's gonna be 15 feet. But that traffic engineering is done, although it's not, the town will probably take it to the next level, obviously, if they're, but everything works, and.
Yes. Now, what about the westerly side, the condo side? What, is that that's just a entrance?
That's just gonna be an entrance, right.
Assuming that there would be most likely the town put a light at Paquonicket, that would sort of help to stagger the traffic.
Oh, absolutely.
You see the pull out there. Yeah.
Right.
That would be an intersection.
Yeah, I think if I could just jump in, it's important to remember part of this project is mitigation. And that, you know, there's been conversations, Mr. Lincoln, myself, Stephanie, town administrator, selectman, and we'll be discussing it here as we get a formal application. It's one idea anyways, is to have that mitigation go towards the design of this section of road. You can't, you know, until we know there needs to be, just on existing conditions, there needs to be a light. Things would be helped out to have a light at Quantico and Foundry. Can't really do the passing lane until you have that light, because I think as we get further into the traffic studies, you'll see that would probably be actually more difficult and more dangerous.
Yeah.
But there's things we could do with that, but that will be addressed, and right, as Rick says, the 15 feet is for that, because I think eventually we'll see a redesign with sidewalks.
Yes. Right.
And other amenities to help create the walkable neighborhood that we're focusing on in the.
Well, in that case, then the phased approach might be better, because, you know, how sometimes things just, you know, things take longer. Well, as far as the road work, which is, we say on the town side, you know, if that were delayed and then the two sides were both built and there was no traffic, you know, there was no actual physical traffic mitigation performed, that could, you know, that could make a bad situation worse.
Well, yeah, but I mean, but let's be careful with what we say, because 29,000 cars a day go down this road.
Yeah.
So adding 300 trips isn't, you know, but maybe maybe what we have to do prior to the light, maybe our traffic engineers will tell us it's a right turn only.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've driven down, say, 138.
But I just don't want to get it out there that putting this in is going to be a dangerous situation.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, yeah.
Or really exacerbate
Let's keep in mind,
the existing conditions.
106 and 123 here already gets an enormous amount of traffic. Just like on 138, what we're trying to do is, okay, let's improve it. Let's improve the corridor so some of those cars will stop and take advantage of what the town has to offer.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's why there's a traffic engineer, you know, involved here. I mean, I've driven up, say, drive north on 138 to 95 through Canton, and I believe there's like a police officer directing traffic at sometimes a day. So people can exit there. It might be a way much bigger, apartment or condominium area, I'm not sure, but yeah. So,
Plus, this is probably a 4-year build. You know, that many houses with that kind of infrastructure, you know, that's not gonna go real fast. So by then, hopefully, the light would be in and maybe the road work's
Yes,
done. I
yeah.
don't know.
So I'm new, so I might be asking a question that was already answered. Do you do any studies for soil contamination on this area?
We're actually gonna have a little neighborhood meeting, but the short story is, I think it was 20 test pits over on because I didn't wanna buy it till I knew it was clean. So there was one hot spot, which barely exceeded, and I can't remember what the contaminant was, so that square was removed, disposed of, and the rest of the site's clean. Which is another advantage to putting 5 feet. Some people, you can say that, and some people still don't believe it, but there's also gonna be another 4, 5, 6 feet of soil on top, so, but it's clean.
Over here, any questions, guys?
Is the recreational area gonna be open to the public, or is it just gonna be private?
Private.
Okay. And then I think the designs I remember seeing on the Foundry side had a very nice aesthetic. I think it'll be interesting once we get to see what the duplexes look like.
Yeah, hopefully it's the same aesthetic.
Right.
That's the challenge the architect has with a duplex, right? I think
And-
the advantage too is we're not trying to jam in 3 or 4 bedrooms, with just 2 bedrooms and 1,800 square feet.
Right.
You've got some room to work with, and get your elevations right.
Problem is, nobody wants a 1-car garage. It's New England. Everybody has to have 2-car garages or killers in the front.
Right.
So Rick, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I think he's still in a minute.
That's what I was gonna ask. Is that box roughly a 2-car garage size, I would imagine, with the width of the house compared to the other ones you got? Probably.
He's got 2-car garages.
Yeah.
I do have floor plans here, I just don't wanna
That's
hand them
fine.
out yet.
Yeah, let's not go down that road, Jeff.
He'd kill me if I passed them out this early.
And since we have a
you brought them with you though, so.
All right, I lied.
And since we have a couple new members, I just want to point out, and I'm assuming, I haven't spoken to you for a while, but on the duplex side, at the circle, there are 4 parking spaces. And is that for, we've talked about sort of access to the emerald necklace, if you will, of Easton Conservation? Right, so that's what that's intended for?
Right.
Right.
I mean,
so-
we'd like to do more, but right now, we're just,
Right. it's
until we get in
preliminary
front of
stage, I get it.
Concom, we're trying to
So-
minimize impact.
So part of this, guys, if you know, so this, there's a lot of resource area here, wetlands protected area, and it goes on quite a bit, and eventually connects to sort of where the
So
cranberry bogs
it's
are.
the Wheaton
up
Farm,
on-
it's
yeah,
part of the Wheaton Farm complex.
And then it crosses, obviously, crosses the pond and starts to go up to Quonicut. So one of the things we've talked on other boards in town is having access. We always brag about how we've saved 4,000 acres. We've acquired 4,000 acres of open space. But how many of them people even know about or use? And not that you want them all to be used, there's a reason why you preserve them, I get that. But so this seemed to be, going back to the earliest incarnations of this, that we talked about having a benefit to the community, that there could be some access to this. And so that's what this, we'll obviously get in more detail as we go, but that's kind of what the whole path and with the bridge and the parking area is for.
Yeah, so it kind of, and that's what I was going to point out, that is intended to provide public access to walk through that neighborhood. Again, kind of helping to build that walkable neighborhood, and kind of the vision that was identified in the charrette last year.
So does that mean that you are planning on building sidewalks?
That would all be up to, as we get through planning board and conservation commission.
It sounds like a silly question, but a lot sometimes
Right.
people say, oh, well, there are only so many units here, we don't really need a sidewalk, but now that we're actually talking
Well, I
about it.
think-
Look, the
it's part
plan
of-
shows sidewalks.
Yeah, no, I see that, well, yeah,
Right.
but.
Well, I think it's required under the compact neighborhood
right.
overlay
Yeah, okay,
district.
yeah.
Oh, is it? So that's why they did it?
Yes,
So,
Yes.
So it's a yes, probably, sidewalks?
That's a yes.
yes, that's a yes.
Shown.
So, just my only thought on this, obviously it's still a preliminary stage, but the aesthetics, I'd say too, you know, and you know, you did the garages to the back, because at first we talked about that, and that was my nod to Stephanie, she doesn't like this, so I, you know, pushed that out there.
Well, not all out front.
But I would caution, I just look in the single family section, and you might be shooting yourself in the foot with the garage placement sometimes, because there's no yard, all right? You know, when you think about it, they have people don't
Putting
have
it in the
backyard.
back, you mean?
Yeah, they don't have any back, right, so,
Right.
you know, maybe sliding it a little bit, it's just, you know, something,
Right.
you know, and, you know, the aesthetically or architecturally, what we looked at for these originally was great, we all liked it.
Right.
Hopefully that continues. And, yeah, then here's the challenge, you know, the duplex with the 2 giant garages in front. It's been done successfully and looked nice, and hopefully, you know, hopefully we can do
I
it
think,
here,
yeah.
you know? So anyways, that's that.
Over here, actually, I'll float the balloon now. I'll come back, obviously, you know, as we get further into it. Is we thought about trying to blow up a few of the garage rears that don't work from a grading issue, and if we try and get them up front, we may turn them. But that might require, whether it's a common drive, and I don't even want to say that word. But-
Zero lot line, I could see where you, I mean.
Right, but you have the 20-foot, that setback in the bylaw, but, you know, we've got a picture, we would eliminate a lot of driveways by coming in and going left and right.
Right.
And then kind of vary it, the next one could be a garage
And
rear,
And there is wording in the bylaw, and again, because this is sort of a collaboration and you know, it's flexible to, because, you know, especially, you know, look at the vernal pools that popped up. I mean, things change as you go. So, you know, I look at a couple of these, like, you know, between 20 and 21, I'm like, oh, instead of having these double driveways right next to each other with this little piece of grass that's
Right.
never gonna grow anything. Yeah, but, you know, and then slide those garages, almost, you know.
Right.
Make them close.
Yep.
And that lets you, and then it gives them, I mean, of course, 21 already has a yard, giving it shape up. But anyways, I think.
But there'll be variety, you would allow for variety, because it wouldn't just be all symmetrical, they would,
Yep.
some could be offset one way, and then some of the others to, like, you know, provide like maybe like a larger yard in one spot and less.
Right hand or left hand?
Yeah, so, you know, duplexes with big smiling faces of garage doors up front scares me, but it's been done really well some places, so.
and maybe we do
Hopefully.
some 1s and 2s and,
That's what I mean,
You
if
know,
there
the
were like one every,
16-foot.
yeah,
yeah, we'll
Yeah.
come up with something.
it's staggered sort of.
I think that's the
You can make a garage 1 bay deep, 1 bay wide, 2 bays deep. That gives you more front facade.
Yeah.
I've seen that. kind of
It's
success.
variety.
Right.
It really is. That's what really makes it work.
Yep.
If everything isn't the same, when you have all your garages up front, it really provides this, it creates this real homogeneous look. And, you know, you've already talked about that, maybe stepping some back. so-
Oh, yeah, yeah.
so
And again, I think
that's
I had already mentioned
what's
it, but,
important.
I mean, there'll be no vinyl siding in here. You know, it's all it'll be the pre-finished concrete board.
Which will really add to the
It'll make it look
aesthetics as
nicer.
well.
So, what roughly, what's timetable for coming to us, or you don't know yet? Or do you think it'll be in 19 that you'll file?
Oh, yeah, yep, yep.
So.
'Cause I see Andrea here, so we want to kind of parallel the thing with
Yeah.
Conservation Commission and
Sure.
you guys and.
And if I may jump in, we talked at the last meeting when you were ready, and I think before you actually come with full designs to the planning board, we want to do a design review team meeting so that you get input. This is really good, having input from the planning board, but before all the engineering is complete, having all the other different permitting organizations, Greg, you and any of the board members would be welcome to attend. We'd have to figure out, if you have too many, we might have to post it as a meeting, but to provide with feedback so that you don't come to the table and then get comments from Board of Health or police or building and have to make significant changes. We also talked about doing a site walk at some point for the board, and again, inviting I think for this size project, it would really be helpful to invite members of the design review team to that site walk, and maybe do that before the actual design review team meeting.
Okay.
And then, again, Andrea's here tonight. I know she's reached out to you, but I think if the earlier you start conversations with Andrea, and that may even include the Conservation Commission chair, to start talking about the plan and kind of identify what some of the challenges are going to be there.
Okay. We can stake center line and all that stuff, so.
Where do you put your road infiltration? Is it gonna go under the road? Or, like stormwater?
No, it'll all be, I mean, if it gets lifted, that's the reason to
Yeah.
pitch it to your stormwater basins and everything. So there'll be basins here and there. Some will be,
So
low
like some of that,
impact.
so some of that green area, those green
Correct.
sections, yeah, I see,
Right. Yeah, they're not drawn in yet.
Oh, right, yeah.
Now, on the Foundry side, it's a little bit easier because it's pre-disturbed, but there'll be, detention will be a little more challenging over there on the left side.
Oh, wait, you wanna build on top of what's there already, yeah, so, yeah, I see. You don't wanna dig a big basin there, you wanna sort of, right, yeah.
Do you anticipate filing simultaneously for both sites, or you don't know yet?
I haven't thought about it.
Have you,
Could.
just to build on that, on the stormwater management, and I think we may have talked about this at the very beginning, but Winterberry Hills over on Union Street, that was a 40B, and their stormwater is all low-impact development, wren
Right.
gardens, and I don't think they did any bioretention cells. And it's in a real tight area. I mean, everything's surrounded by wetlands, and yet it works. It
Yeah,
works
I've
really
driven
well.
through
Still
there.
working, but that was a good test site.
It is working really well. They redid the plantings because the original plantings were sufficient. And they had a landscaper that was trimming, all these bushes, shrubs that
the
were
rain gardens,
supposed to,
right,
that were designed to just grow freely. And they did come in and they did replant the whole area, but it really has, it was
It worked.
working even up to that point, and it continues to work. So that might be something to consider.
Yeah, we
because
have
of-
the land, we have more land here probably than they did, so.
Yeah, and
yep.
I mean, the rain gardens, really, they run down the center line of the road. They did have to kind of redesign, they had to put up some curbing because people were driving into it, but they have openings that allow flow of water into the system.
Yeah, and even at this Squeezer one, you notice if you go through the plans, there aren't really any, there are a few basins on some corners, but really for the most part, they're really,
It's blank,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, I mean, they need more parking spots, it's more denser than what they're doing here, but, yeah.
Yeah, see, that's that tricky balance with conservation and, the vernal pools and then
Yeah, right.
impervious, and so we'll have to get through it to strike a balance. We can add more parking.
It is a dance.
Yes.
So, everybody that said anything, everybody that wants to say anything, spoken? Andrea, did you want to add anything? Or you're just here to view us tonight?
Want to just talk stormwater for a while, just for the fun of it, no?
Yeah, can't get none of that stormwater management talk, especially with just a preliminary plan. So, yeah, I mean, all good points brought up. And Stephanie's right. When the plan's a little further, get the design review team going. We should all circle back and get together with Connor. And now that it's been up in the air, but we should tie down the mitigation and get that set. That wants to be part of the presentation.
Yeah, you and I can talk about that because that's, he's on vacation this week, but he wants to kind of nail that down.
Maybe we just set a date. so
Yeah.
I have a target.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes.
everybody gets pushed.
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And yeah, that way we just get this, we can get this locked in and start, there's been a lot of talk in town, and I want to get this into a public hearing so we can share with folks and address,
Okay.
All right, well, thank you for coming in, and,
Thanks for hearing it.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Next up, Lincoln Estates 2. Lot release.
This guy has a big backyard.
And do you have the
Here, see?
road cost estimates?
Right there. Yeah.
Do I have one?
Now he has all
So,
Wow.
Mr. Chair,
houses behind now.
Mr. Adams is here tonight to request a lot release for lots located at Lincoln Estates 2, which was recently approved by the board. We ran a road cost estimate for completion of the road. And you all have a copy of our estimate, which comes in at $103,258. And if you apply the 10% escalation or inflation rate factor year over year for 3 years, it's $137,436. I know we've had conversations with Bill. You know, he helped us refine our cost estimate based on current prices. Of course, he can, you know, if he completes the road, it comes in at a lower cost than what the town would have to pay. If we had to complete the road, and our road cost estimates are always based on what the town would have to pay to finish that roadway.
So,
Can
you gonna present something, or
yeah,
I think,
are you done?
I am done, yes.
Okay.
okay. So I run in a copy of my estimation.
But, but all due respect,
Yeah.
means nothing to this board.
Okay,
And I do mean that all due respect.
okay,
She's our town planner, we have a process in place,
okay.
and we can't, as a board, we can't deviate from this.
Okay,
And I
well,
understand, I know you can build it cheaper and this and that, and when I tell everybody, well, go get it built quick, so it won't be an issue, because the town has to look at it as a worst-case scenario,
Okay.
right? Because they've been
What I
done it
wanna-
before.
What I want to show you
Uh-huh,
is, I've been doing this for 34 years.
I know, but the,
No, what I want to show you, I want to explain something to you. The town can't use a number.
you can use my,
There's
mic.
inflated-
Grab a mic.
What?
You gotta
Huh?
pick up a mic.
Okay, the town numbers that they're using state prevailing wage labor rates,
Right, which they have to.
okay. The cost of the materials, I went over to Windwater and I gave them the approved plan and I said, can I get a breakout of the cost for the materials to buy? And the cost of the materials is 3 times higher on the state bid, which is ridiculous. I don't know how they could be. How a hydrant could be $5,000 with the state and $2,100.
Okay, so I look at, believe me, I'm on a lot of boards in town,
Yep.
and ask Stephanie, I rail against what it costs towns to do things. I bring back the WPA, I'm all for that, I think. But, no, I'm gonna cut you off there, because I know where you're going, and again, I appreciate it, but there's nothing we can do about it.
Okay.
Zero,
But-
so I don't wanna talk about how you can build it cheaper than the
No,
town.
I'm not gonna do that.
Look, please, sit down and listen to me for a second, okay? I'm trying
But
to.
I want to say something.
No, I'm taking the floor, okay? Because I know what you're gonna say, and it's irrelevant.
You don't know what I'm saying.
We cannot deviate from this, okay? The town has an entire department in charge of this. And as we're citizens, we're appointed by the Board of Selectmen, and we have our say plenty of times. But there's certain things we have to, we must, and we are by law required to adhere to what the people that work for the town do. So we're not gonna get, if you have that much of a difference in cost that you wanna go to the mat, then that's fine. Then we'll pull this right now, and you can deal with Stephanie and the town administrator, and then you guys can come back to me, and you can say, okay, we've decided, but all we can do as a board is vote on the cost that our staff gives us. That's not negotiable. I don't make those rules. I might like them, I might hate them, but I have to go by this. I have no choice.
I've been doing this for 34 years, and every town I go to, I provide a couple of costs from local contractors, estimates of cost, and that's what they go by.
Okay.
I've never had them go by a state
But,
numbers,
well,
and your state numbers that you have, on top of them being 4 times higher, you have.
I thought it was 3 times higher.
You have, no, there's 3 and 4 times. I broke them all out. There's, down the bottom, you're adding $40,000 in 10% increases.
Right.
On top of the outrageous number.
So,
So now you're at 150,000 and I'm at 50.
I've been on the planning board for 13 years. And in that time, I've seen multiple times, this is why we had to get back to taking bonds. We used to take lots. Multiple times that roads didn't get built the way they're supposed to, they didn't get finished. You know, things happen. It's not just Easton, it happens everywhere. So, we're not talking, nobody in Easton builds a road in a year. It just doesn't happen. You know, Bridgewater, I love how Bridgewater does it. The road gets finished before you get any lots released. And then when someone goes in to build a house or build a building, they have to take a bond out, and the slightest little mark from that excavator on the pavement, they get whacked for. But, and I've pitched that a couple times in Easton to avoid this whole situation. I'm like, hell, just make the whole road go in at once. But I understand why that doesn't work for everybody, that's fine. So, but prices have to escalate because prices go up, and that thing that you price out at Windwater today isn't gonna be the same in 8 years from now when we're stuck paving a road that was binded next month. But again, this is not an argument that we really can have here. We have no choice but to go by this. This is how it's always been done in the 13 years I'm in Easton. And you can hate it, you can disagree with the prices and all that, but that's just not it. We are not allowed as a board, that's something you're gonna have to work out with the administration, with Stephanie and her staff, if it can even be worked out. We're not here, we're not allowed to reduce costs. We have to, staff gives us their standard form, very often taken on an input, so I can't stress it enough. This might be, I understand you don't like this number, but there's nothing that we can do about that. It's just not in our power. I can't, it's illegal for me to reduce that cost.
I already
My
had
hands are
Jotham Drive, and I posted a bond for Jotham Drive, and it was based on 2 estimates from 2 local construction companies that were reputable. And that was accepted back then on Jotham Drive. Now so I understand, but.
But that was before I was on the board even.
This is 300 feet of road, and part of it's already done. So to pay 3 and 4 times the cost well, let me ask you a question then.
So, but
can I do this?
No, let me just say this. This has been a long night. I don't want to argue on this. Then let's do this. Let's continue this. You get together with Stephanie and her staff, during the day, business hours, and try to work it out. If they can come back, we are not going. We can't. We're
Let me
not
make
gonna go
another
through this list and whittle
proposal.
it down. That's the only proposal.
Can I get a release on one lot, and I'll put the other lot up for collateral? The lot's surely worth
we can't.
$300,000.
The town does not do lots up for collateral. You got to do this. We don't write the rules, but we have to follow the rules. And if you don't like them, that's fine. But you're not preaching to the choir. But it's nothing we can do about this. This is, if you want to plead your case outside of this public hearing, this public meeting with Stephanie and her staff, that's fine. But we can't reduce, we're not allowed to just reduce road costs.
We don't even have we've never done it before, so it hasn't really
I'm assuming,
come up.
right,
So, yeah,
it's never, this is,
If it were a
the
thing that
only
we commonly
thing
did.
that's ever come up is, we've been here and people say, oh, wait a minute, that curb, that's on here, but that curb's done, this is
Right,
done.
yeah.
Because people are always looking to buy down their bond.
People always pay 4 times, they post 4 times the amount of the cost of a hydrant. They post 4 times.
probably
It's
different.
expensive, it is expensive for the town to build things, I mean, yeah,
It's probably different in this situation where there are just 2 lots, so it's not like, usually they say there are 10 lots, and the town keeps a couple of them to cover the road or something like that, then,
Well,
right, yeah.
And if I may just provide some clarification, I mean, these are the estimates that Andrea reached out to Greg Swan. We use the estimates, the costs that Amory Engineering is currently using to estimate road costs. That's what we based it on. Mr. Adams sent this to us today. We agreed to take a look at it. Where we can't verify a cost to be less, because he wanted to get before the board tonight, we said, well, we'll go with this, and this is what we're going to present to the board, because, again, this is based on what we know to be. We could go back, as Mr. Strange is suggesting, and go back to the town engineer and ask him to review those and see if he would adjust any of those costs based on, again, what the town has to pay. And I have communicated that you know, this is what it's based on. And what Mr. Adams is paying for is a bond for surety, but you will get back that cost. I mean, we're not, the road doesn't, he doesn't have to pay these costs to construct the road. It's an upfront cost that,
You just can't,
you know,
you can't sell both lots until, yeah.
That's right.
Until the road, you can only sell one lot, basically.
Or
right, in
unless he's
Nashville,
put up,
right? It's gonna-
unless
the way
he's
it's gonna
put up
affect you is you can only
surety.
sell one lot until you finish almost like 3/4 of the road or something like that, right?
Typically, what
Yeah.
you do is you build as much of the road as you can build.
Yeah, I know, yes.
But I have, on the roadway, it was appealed by the neighbors, so I'm under a superseding order of conditions that I'm waiting to have sent to me. So I can't do anything with the road, with that end of the road, to complete it.
Yeah, so the problem is that you
without
barely
waiting
make
for
any
that.
money off the first
But I have
house.
a
Usually
purchase and
you
sale
can build the
agreement.
houses in the front and makes the money, and then you can finish the rest of it, but it's in this
In
situation,
this
you
case,
can't.
so I can't do anything with that part of the road.
Yeah.
So my hands are tied. I've got a buyer that wants to buy a lot, and I can't sell it, and I've got an order of conditions that's expiring in October. I mean,
Well, we meet in 2 weeks, so I suggest you get together
Yeah, we'll
with
ask.
Stephanie
we'll ask the-
and Greg
our
Swan, or
department
whoever,
head to write at the top.
whatever, and get to a point, see if there's a point you know, where you can be happy with this, because there's nothing we can do with this. I'm not trying to be a hard ass, I'm not trying to be obtuse, there's nothing we can do with this. We can vote yay or nay on this, that's it, we can't change this. We're not allowed to do that, that opens us to liability, we just can't do it. You know, so, but I don't want to speak for you, are you willing to meet-
I'm absolutely willing to, we're willing to have Greg Swan look at
Sure,
this
yeah,
again.
to do whatever has to be.
And
I
see
can
if,
give you the materials cost from Windwater.
Even then, though, I mean, what do you want us to
But-
do besides,
but if, I mean,
you want us to release 2 lots with the road not built? I mean, what do you want us to?
well, the
what's
way,
expectation
that,
here, you know what I mean?
that's the purpose for putting the surety up.
Yeah.
And
Oh, so
that's
you
where
wanna-
Greg's
yeah.
saying that the town no longer holds lots,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're holding lots instead of surety being put up,
Mm-hmm.
and you're releasing them as the road's being constructed, if the road isn't completed, the town can't do anything with the lots. You can hold them, you can continue to
But-
hold
and
them and
I-
not release them, but you
But, you know, and I
can't sell them,
understand
you
your
can't.
anger, but here's the thing, people forget, this is the reality of construction in Massachusetts, municipal construction.
But hold on,
When it's not just prevailing wage, all right? It goes, absolutely. I see, you know, costs are 3, 4, 5, 6 times what they are in the market because, and that's not because of the municipality, it's the folks that bid it. It's the system. It is. Prevailing wage, well, you know, and there's a lot of requirements. It's a different, you know, it's a different game than private construction. And it's a completely different set of costs. Completely different set of costs. I mean, I pull my hair out when I watch municipalities build things because to me it doesn't, you know, it's a shame because we could do so much more if things didn't have to be so out of whack, but it is what it is, and the hands are tied, you know, on this one. So I wish I could help you out.
I think I'm missing
but-
something here. This isn't bonded though, right? This is a lot release. This is not.
So,
We can't
so you
release
can't.
lots without surety.
That's right, and that's the way it works. So people have commented, most often, because the developer can do it for less, he has an economy of scales, he has relationships, he has people on site doing other work, they will start the road work. And they'll get to a certain point where now they're ready to sell lots, and they can do construction because they have the utilities in, they have the base course in, and then they'll come to the board. We'll put a road cost estimate together based on the work that's been completed to date. They'll put up the surety, and then the board releases the lots.
But the surety is a form of a lot. Are you saying that we don't take lots anymore?
No, we don't
No,
take
lot
we
is
take
not-
lots for 4 years.
Yeah, we
Lot-
take,
lots-
just bonds though? No, I'm saying.
Lot isn't
Just bonds,
really
Just bonds?
surety,
Okay.
you hold the lots until the road
I
is
know.
constructed.
But that's not surety. You're
Or-
still taking a
No,
bond.
but I think we've
That's
had people say
right.
the state gives you certain ways that you can the state and the Easton prescribes to it, that there are certain ways.
Easton,
way it-
we've had multiple meetings on
Yeah,
this.
no, I know.
Easton we do not take lots on surety anymore.
Right.
And here's the reason why, so folks at home understand. Town of Easton, we're not, whether you're talking about the DPW or the fire department or town hall staff or the police department, we don't have, reams of excess, surplus employees, believe me, right? And so when all of a sudden a road that doesn't, someone goes belly up or someone doesn't finish a road or, something happens, the town of Easton, suddenly the DPW and whoever else gets involved in it, their board's already full, so now they have to carve out and go play project manager or site super or whatever their job is on building a road. So first of all, they're not gonna know how to do it like a road builder, so it's gonna cost a little more right off the bat. And then because it's a municipality, so it's gonna cost more. And then they may have to hire consultants because they're already busy doing a sewer tie-in over here and sewer here and, building a new school. So it's, we see this all, when people come in and complain about these costs, well, I guess I look at it as, well, get the road done, quick, because then this is the town saying, this is the town making sure they have enough money to finish it. The town doesn't want to get into the road building business. But if they have to, it's going to cost the town a lot more to build this than it would cost you or any other builder. And that's why it's like this. I mean, this isn't a conspiracy to, it's not, Easton's certainly not an anti-development town. I think we balance conservation and development well, but there are the financial realities. And we've been sitting down the end of the barrel on a few of these. Easton has been burnt back in the day when maybe they took a less professional approach. And yeah, you're right. Joe the road builder says that road's $100 a foot. Yeah, well, 8 years later, after that binder sat out there forever, and binder's not supposed to be out there for 8 years, so that starts to blow apart, and culverts are cracked, and catch basins upside down. And next thing you know, the town eats $800,000 on a road.
No, I think broadening's
We don't
better.
want that to happen.
Yeah, I'm glad that everyone here has reiterated that the next time someone comes in and says, I just want to give you a few lots, we're going to say, no, you need to bond that. Right?
So
Yeah.
We've been doing that for
I just want
Okay, great.
to, Mr. Chair,
We can move on here. Let's,
Greg, I just want to be clear. The way the subdivision regulations are written, the town has to encumber the lots until the road is built, or that the board satisfied that it has been constructed and or surety has been placed. So what you do is you have a covenant that encumbers the lots. Then the developer can come, they can put up surety right up front in either the form of a bond or cash or a tripartite agreement. And you can release lots based on that surety being put up. And again, usually what you see happening is the road gets constructed to a certain level, and then the developer comes in, they put up that money, and then lots are released. The board has in the past has agreed to hold lots, at least for a period of time, so the developer can get started. And that makes sense when you have a larger subdivision. It allows some sale of lots and for some cash flow to start.
So we do,
But we've been advised since doing that, and there are some subdivisions that are still out there like that, that the board, that's really not the intent of the subdivision regulations. The intent is you encumber the lots, and then you make sure you have something as you release some surety to ensure that the road can be completed.
And those out there have been out there for a long time. Because when's the last time we had a large subdivision, right? Other than, say, Barron. We get all 2s, 3s, and 4s. That's why we've. So.
I have another question, if possible. Is there a covenant on this lot? This lot was approved years ago, prior to the subdivision.
Well, when it was a single lot,
As a single lot, it was approved.
it wasn't a subdivision approval, so it's
Right.
not.
But do I need a release? Do I need a release of this single lot that was already approved?
But it's not a single lot, you just change it to a subdivision. You
Yeah,
can't have it both
it's-
ways. It's either a
Well,
tomato
I
or.
had a subdivision to get the second lot. That's what I did.
Right, but it's a 2-lot subdivision. It's not a single lot with
Right.
one. I mean, it is what it
It
is.
would be tied to some deed or something anyways, that would be probably find. But-
So look, I think we're taking this as far as we can. I think you guys should get together and then see what we can do 2 weeks from now.
We'd be happy to consider a lower number if, work with the town and get to one.
I'll send you what I have.
Well, you can send, I mean, at this point, what we'll do is tomorrow, we'll just send it
Okay,
to Greg.
okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. Sorry we couldn't help you.
Have a good night.
So, you're not on the agenda.
No.
So is this any pertinent item not reasonably anticipated by the chair?
Only because Mr.
Are you pertinent?
Koska came today asking.
All right, so,
And I
so are you going to allow him to speak?
It's up to the chair.
I will allow him to speak.
I don't know what it's about.
Because he's going to identify
I don't
himself.
want to get any lots for
But I'm going to let him and Stephanie talk about it. So
Ken Koska, Barron Estates.
Where's my thing with the?
I just want to switch lots that I have released, one lot for one lot. Lot 1 for lot 6. Or lot 6 for lot 1.
So the board already voted, and this one is a situation where the board, I mean, I want to be quite open, where the board did agree to hold lots in lieu of surety. We've talked about it, and actually, the new board members would recall that they voted to release 11 lots with the understanding that if any additional lots were to be released beyond the ones that were approved, that Mr. Koska would come in and he'd have to put up surety. So in this instance, what Mr. Koska is asking is, instead of releasing lot 6, right?
Correct.
He wants the,
No, instead of
lot 1.
1 for 6.
Lot 1 to release lot 6.
You haven't recorded it yet.
Is that affected by where you kind of get different infrastructure in and the?
No, all the roads, we're all paved now, so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
They don't
Okay,
have to
yeah.
I'm
talk.
going to guess it's affected because somebody wants to buy lot 6.
No, it's actually, I made a mistake. Lot 6 needed to be done because it's part of the Zolas that own a piece of property.
Oh, yeah, but yeah,
It's part of the-
different.
Yeah, I
parts.
just didn't.
Mine was funnier.
Yeah. We'll go with that.
All right, so
So-
Stephanie,
I did drive down a few months ago.
is this
that road is
possible,
nice.
and how is it, and what do we have to do?
Well, the board already approved 11, releasing 11 lots, so it would be retaining the 11 lots. What you would have to do, though, because right now, there is, I have this written on this, there is a covenant E, which is the covenant that encumbers the lots, on record, that,
Was that for the 25 lots? That one's got to be get rid of?
yeah, under the old zoning. So let's see, once board votes, put note on file saying.
It's got to do some house cleaning.
That was
It's
the
like, how do you
recording.
undo just one of the whole thing? Because you probably all
Undo
did it all
2
kind of in
and
one
make
shot.
1
right? Yeah.
clean. Yeah,
So there is
only 1 recorded.
an original Form F that
Then you sold it,
identified the
right?
We
lots to
got
be
1
released.
extra lot.
And there's a document that clears that from the title chain. And then there's the new lot release that includes the lots as Mr. Koska would like it to be. So it includes all the lots previously approved except for lot 1, and it adds lot 6 in its place.
Is it just an amended lot release, essentially?
Essentially,
Yeah, just a
essentially.
It was a clerical error that...
So can we toss out the original
Yes,
covenant? and
Same size.
We have to do a new covenant? Is that how we do it? or-
you have actually,
Lawyer.
it's 2
It
covenants.
sounds like we're just
It-
modifying what we'd
Right.
already done. Because
Right.
I do remember this one very well.
Right.
I think it was my first night on the board. I remember it very
Yes.
well.
Yes,
I mean, I don't, personally, I don't have any issue with doing that. We already have the paperwork drawn up?
yes.
So someone looked at it and said, yeah, you can do it, no problem. This is,
Yeah.
the logistics are not a.
The logistics are not a problem.
So can you give us the wording of what the motion would be? So someone could say, so moved?
Okay.
But she said,
Exactly.
Eliminate one
So,
and add 6.
It would be 2 votes. One is that the board is voting to release the covenant dated March 7th, 2018.
Give me a so moved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the wonderfully worded motion?
The second motion is to certify the requirements for work on the ground called for by the covenant dated February 11th, 2019, and recorded in Bristol County Deeds, Registry of Deeds book. 24946, page 266, have been completed to the satisfaction of the Planning and Zoning Board, and that said lots hereby are released from the restriction as to sale and building. And those released lots are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. The remaining lots subject to the covenant are 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Oh, go for it.
All those in favor? Boom. Motion passes.
Might want to double check all that before we sign it again.
I'm not making it. Thank you.
The right numbers?
You're welcome.
We don't want to.
Have a good night.
Don't want
You
to have to
too.
redo that
All right,
again.
let's do variance 19-9, 65 Belmont Street. This is a sign company
Yeah,
looking to replace the building with a larger building.
yeah. You need a functional,
Is that in here?
They're also
Place
removing,
to-
yeah. But they're also removing the existing garage,
Do you
which
have a
doesn't
copy
conform
for me?
either, so.
and a shed.
Yeah,
They're
right.
taking out an old rickety one and putting up a new
Right.
larger.
Yeah, but they put that on the corner, near
Right, yeah,
the
the temporary
neighbor.
garage
Right,
now
the
is like
temporary one
tent.
is, right, yeah. No, I looked at it
Oh, is
today.
that what it is?
Here,
Right, but didn't
you're
it say
in
the
control
neighbors
of
were
the
allowed
signage, but just,
It says the neighbors are
you
good,
have
but I
something I
don't
can
know.
look
Kind of all
at?
commercial properties in there. I think they-
Yeah,
Those are apartments in the back. I mean, I would just
Yeah.
say,
It's this
Handing it to
temporary
you for
structure is more like
signatures.
a cylindrical tent.
no, yeah, I was just there. I can
Yeah.
pass a picture if anyone wants to see it, but, so, yeah, I mean, I would just recommend maybe a fence along the back would just, provide some screening for the apartment building.
Yeah.
so
I'm
they're
good with
going to
that.
put vehicles
So
there.
I think
wrap-
maybe it's
wrap
like,
the
as it
signs
evolves,
and-
it's just maybe got a little mess. I mean, it's not horrible or anything, it's just, yeah.
You don't have to explain it.
Yeah,
Why don't
okay.
you just make a motion?
Okay, motion to recommend with the suggestion that a screening fence be placed along the rear property line to screen from the apartment buildings behind the sign business.
Second.
I got a little wordy there, but.
But can I, all right,
Yeah.
second, we have, so further discussion. But so what's the, because the building's, what's the difference between a wall and a fence?
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because the wall, they're almost on top of the property line. And I understand what you're saying, but the fence, and that's a 3-story apartment building, right? At least.
Does it show, I
But
want to
that's,
see
you're
the
not gonna hide the
plan.
building, you're gonna see the roof, you're gonna say, I mean, I know you're.
It's gonna look better. I mean,
What would be another alternative?
Where's?
I mean, are we gonna give them a
in the
plan that shows
structure?
where the fence would be, or, and where do we,
That's,
you know what I'm saying?
there's not much of a question. Everything's up against the property line anyways, so the fence would go along the property line. I mean,
Right, but that's
So
what
you're
I'm saying, I
saying,
mean,
is
the
the
building's.
fence even worth it?
Well, that's what I'm saying, the building's kind of up against the property line, so, just to make them go to the expense of a fence.
yeah. No, I know. I was.
And, or to have, if I'm on ZBA, I'd be thinking, well, what's the fence gonna do?
is there a building code requirement that that building can't be less than the 16.7 feet to the existing building? Which would move it?
No, I mean,
Set it back further?
depending on construction types, there may be some
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
fire ratings for walls, but I don't think so.
So anyway, so this is what the people from the apartment look at. That one's getting torn down.
Yeah.
You got
Oh, you
that,
know what? I didn't know what I was
that,
looking
that,
for.
and then
Oh, I understand,
Yeah,
a
if you
fence
don't
would make it
If
nicer.
you don't agree, a fence,
But-
just could be useful in that
No,
spot.
but fence would be nicer, but,
What's
so
happening
you
with
wanna
the
put a fence along the whole property, I just,
Yeah,
you
I don't know, okay.
Isn't there, I mean,
I would just say this, if we're going to say, I would like it worded that, okay, if we approve it, it would be, we recommend putting a fence along there to help improve the aesthetic. I'd like to just say, because Because where's the fence going? What do you want it to do?
Yeah,
And so
okay.
it doesn't look like we're just saying, put up a fence, you know, I mean, I'd kind of want to explain it.
Yeah, sure.
Especially since my name has to be attached to it.
Yeah.
But is there any, I mean, they don't talk about any other alternative, which might be, of course, a smaller structure, or I
Well, they
don't
talk
know
about
if
the
it would
size
be
they need
better
because they're putting
located.
vehicles in there.
Yeah.
And they've spoken, it sounds
Oh,
like
because
and
it's
they've
a
spoken
vehicle,
to the
that's
neighbors.
right.
It's a carport, right? That's where he said it is.
Yeah. I mean,
Basically,
I'm just-
put decals on vehicles.
Right.
I mean, we talk about aesthetics on Route 138 because it's a mixed neighborhood. You know, this is a mixed neighborhood, so, yeah. What do you
But
think?
that's what they are doing today.
They're actually increasing setback here by moving the existing garage on the easterly side.
A little.
But they're increasing
Yeah, a little.
on the, yeah, it's not even a
No,
wash.
it's not, the setback is a.
It's not even really a wash
Uh,
between the two.
Greg, will you suggest for them to move it forward towards the street, maybe?
Well, see, here's my concern. We haven't met with the folks, right? It's, first of all, look from Peter's picture. That apartment building's set back quite a bit. So it's not like the apartment building's 2 feet off the property line.
No,
It's not like,
No,
if
it's-
someone was gonna be
it's a ways
opening the
back,
dining
yeah.
room window and this thing was
It's
right
almost
there,
like 200 feet
I
back,
get
yeah.
it, but it's pretty far. And it's an apartment building, so it's folks that
Wait, we're going back to,
are
no, that's.
maybe not as, you know, they're probably not gonna live there as long as they do in
Yeah, my friend
houses.
used to live there, and they were a young couple. There were older people there that lived there, you know, for a very long time
Okay,
because it was.
so strike my last name, but here's my concern. Look, either we like the building where it is or it isn't, all right? I don't, moving it forward, not based, for what reason, and basically, we don't know. They're not here presenting to us. And look, at moving it forward, it's still gonna be close to the property line.
Right.
And my concern, this rear property line, the 100-foot, that's the furthest away from any of the buildings, you know? So to put a fence, first of all, I'd want to specify where the fence is going. I'd want to specify how high the fence is. And then we should talk about why we want the fence. But we're way past our purview when we do that. We're just, I think we need to vote on, you know, this is really the first time that I can remember we've talked about adding something. You know, we've said we want to make sure it meets the height bylaw, or they should, replace the tree that is on the neighbor's
No,
yard.
I'm
It's
fine.
gonna-
If you just want,
have
if you want to
cut.
just go for just the one, address just the nonconformity, and, you know, from now on, that's great. So we'll just address the variance and not, wait.
Not
There
provide
would never be a
suggestions.
point for any comment, because, you know, all we're doing is just either, we're addressing the variance at hand, and that's that. I mean, there's no mitigation required. I mean, maybe sometimes, not mitigation, but, you know, any kind of,
Owns this.
Yeah.
But it's not, where is it in our
Contemplation of
purview
a-
that we add fences? We've just never done that. And I'm not trying to poo-poo your motion. I
that's
just, is the fence gonna be on the left side too? Or is it, like, where did you see this fence going?
I'm having the Board of Appeals
They
consider.
have shrubs there.
Yeah, considering a fence along the rear property line of the sign business.
There are shrubs
How
there.
is it going to?
Okay, well, we have a motion.
Okay, but, yeah.
So we have a motion that was seconded. And the motion is to approve with a
Okay,
fence
yeah.
on the back.
So we're recommending and
A fence on the rear property line.
and suggesting the possibility of a screening fence along the rear property line.
Is a live fence
Requiring,
okay?
but
No,
suggesting.
yeah, suggesting that be considered.
Is a live fence okay? They have shrubs there. isn't it?
Yeah, they don't have a lot of room. I think, I like Amos, I like the idea of,
The
if
live
you're going to
fence.
put a fence, put something that's going to be aesthetically pleasing.
Right, and a
Yeah,
live,
and that
live
picture's
fence-
missing the
live
dumpster.
fence.
I mean,
There's
really,
there
it's
and the
any
temporary
future
building,
development
right?
of this site. Is that part of the apartment complex, this parcel?
Yeah.
I mean, they're asking for a variance, a dumpster next to a residential area should have some screening. It doesn't, but, I'm not saying put a screening right around the dumpster. It's just really a simple concept, whether it's under our purview in this situation. I mean, that's,
I think,
I think really what the board
Proposing
should be
debate
thinking is,
Where's
what
the
is the
dumpster?
adverse impact from, allowing something that isn't compliant with
So
current
where's
zoning?
the dumpster? I don't see.
I got it here.
I don't see the dumpster on here.
It must be old. But
I don't see a dumpster on the plan. I don't see a dumpster.
Yeah, see,
There's your temporary structure, right?
Is it the blue thing?
yeah, I mean, that,
Is that it? There's a big shadow on
that's-
it.
Oh, okay. Oh, so, yeah, well, maybe it's a construct, maybe it's a, yeah, all right. So it's not here, I get you.
No.
It's not here.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is from today, I don't know when that picture's from.
No, it's probably that thing
This
with
blue
the
thing?
shadow, yeah.
Oh, maybe, yeah, it looks like an umbrella from that direction.
Okay, so we have a motion to recommend the variance and to recommend they put a fence on the rear property line. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Okay.
Who seconded?
I did.
It's been so long, I don't know. That's our only variance, right? Chair's report, nothing to report, we're seeing each other so much. We have a site walk next week, right?
You put two fingers
Yes.
through like that. you
Planning
get
board, tough
two
schedule this summer. Man,
Yeah.
when are we, site walk on Tuesday, right, 6:15? And guys, I'm assuming you all saw the note, I think Deb sent it to everybody. She's gonna at least miss the next meeting,
You're right, yeah.
and then, so, you know, we may have to, well, anyways. So just going forward, if we could just check in, if there's a chance, even if there's a chance sometimes that we may have to miss a meeting, because we're doing a lot of special stuff, if you could just let me or
Yeah.
Stephanie, let us
Yeah.
know, just so we
The
can
next
let
one
applicants
is the-
know ahead of
No,
time.
right, and we
The
can
one is
figure out,
the 9th.
The 9th?
the next meeting is the 9th.
Yeah, the next thing, and we have on Tuesday, September
Right.
3rd, we have a site walk at 58 Mill Street, which I think you were on the.
Yeah,
Yep.
that is okay, but the 9 I'm not here. I'm in Florida.
Okay.
All right,
well,
so
enjoy.
Suzanne, can you make a note of that? So we,
I am-
again,
I
if
am the
anyone else
alternate
is not
anyways.
going
We have
to
a
be,
lot of
that's
Alright, so
going
we
to
have,
impact.
we're all set, right? So we can start signing.
Yep. Could close the meeting.
Yeah, someone gonna make a motion?
Motion to close the meeting.
Second.
It was a little funnier when Benson did it.
Oh, sorry.
I like that.
All those in favor? Motion
I like that better, I like to close the meeting better than adjourn.
Yeah, everybody grab something and start signing. Man, we're gonna love.